BTS news today. The moment the screen went dark, confusion rippled through the fandom like an electric current. 1 second, BTS's Jin, Taehyung and Jungkook were smiling into the camera, laughing softly, speaking with the easy warmth that had become so familiar to millions of armies around the world. The next second, the live abruptly ended without the usual goodbyes, without the playful countdown, without the gentle "see you next time" that fans had come to expect. The silence that followed felt louder than any music they had ever released. Almost immediately, social media exploded with a single burning question that refused to fade. Was this just a technical issue, or was something far more serious happening behind the scenes? Within minutes, speculation took on a life of its own. Clips of the final seconds of the live were replayed endlessly, slowed down, zoomed in, analyzed frame by frame. Fans noticed subtle changes that suddenly felt enormous. Jin's expression calm yet slightly tightened. Taehyung's eyes shifting briefly off camera, as if someone had entered the room or signaled from behind the screen. Jungkook, who had been speaking, stopping mid-sentence, his lips parting as if he wanted to say something more but couldn't. Then the live ended. No explanation, no warning, just darkness. As the hours passed, a phrase began trending across multiple platforms: Bang Si-hyuk's warning. It was a bold assumption, yet one that many fans felt instinctively drawn to. Bang Si-hyuk, the founder and chairman of HYBE, was not just an executive figure. To BTS and to the fandom, he represented authority, protection, and sometimes restraint. He was the man who had believed in them when no one else did, but also the one who understood better than anyone the weight of global attention, corporate responsibility, and the fragile line between honesty and controversy. If a warning had indeed been issued, fans believed it could only come from someone with that level of influence. The live itself had started innocently enough. Jin, freshly radiant with his signature humor and composed confidence, had been in a playful mood. Taehyung, relaxed yet observant, carried his usual air of quiet charisma, occasionally drifting into thoughtful silences that made fans lean closer to their screens. Jungkook, expressive and emotionally transparent, spoke more than the others, his voice soft but sincere. The atmosphere felt intimate, almost nostalgic, as if the three of them were momentarily forgetting the cameras and speaking directly to the people who had grown with them over the years. But then something shifted. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone not deeply familiar with BTS's energy. The conversation slowed. Jungkook began to talk about how grateful he felt lately, how moments like this reminded him of earlier days. His words were vague, but the emotion behind them was unmistakable. Jin listened carefully, nodding, while Taehyung's gaze seemed to grow more distant, more introspective. Fans sensed that the live was moving into a more personal territory, the kind that often led to heartfelt confessions or unexpected honesty. That was when everything stopped. According to insiders cited anonymously by entertainment reporters later that day, the live had not ended due to technical error. The cutoff was intentional, swift, and decided in real time. A message had reportedly come through the moment the tone of the conversation shifted. Whether it was a manager, a staff member, or someone higher up, the instruction was clear: end the live immediately. The name that kept resurfacing in whispers was Bang Si-hyuk. Why would such a drastic decision be made so suddenly? To understand that, one must understand the current position BTS occupies in the global entertainment landscape. They are no longer just artists. They are a cultural force, a symbol, a brand worth billions, and at the same time 7 human beings carrying immense emotional histories. Every word they speak in a live broadcast is dissected, translated, and interpreted by millions within seconds. A single sentence spoken impulsively can spark misunderstandings, controversies, or narratives that spiral far beyond the artist's intentions. Sources close to the situation suggested that the concern was not about rule-breaking or inappropriate behavior. Instead, it was about vulnerability. Jungkook in particular had reportedly been on the verge of expressing something deeply personal. Not scandalous, not rebellious, but emotionally raw. The kind of honesty that fans cherish but that corporate structures often fear, because once spoken, it cannot be taken back. Bang Si-hyuk, known for his protective approach toward BTS, may have seen the potential consequences unfolding in real time and chose intervention over regret. This interpretation gained traction when fans revisited Jungkook's recent behavior. In previous lives and interviews, he had shown signs of emotional exhaustion mixed with a desire for openness. He spoke about pressure, about expectations, about the fear of disappointing others. Each time his words were carefully measured, yet the emotion behind them was unmistakable. Many believed that during this particular live, surrounded by Jin and Taehyung, Jungkook felt safe enough to let his guard down further than planned. Jin's role in those final moments also became a topic of intense discussion. As the eldest, often seen as a stabilizing presence, his calm demeanor during the cutoff struck fans as both reassuring and unsettling. He did not panic. He did not protest. He simply accepted the ending as if he understood exactly why it had to happen. Some fans interpreted this as confirmation that the decision came from a place of protection rather than punishment. Taehyung's silence after the incident only deepened the mystery. Known for his artistic soul and emotional depth, he later posted a simple message that many felt carried hidden meaning. It was not an apology nor an explanation, but a gentle reassurance that everything was okay. To fans, it sounded like a quiet promise that nothing had gone wrong, even if nothing had been explained. HYBE, for its part, released no official statement. This silence was both expected and frustrating. In the absence of confirmation, theories continued to multiply. Some suggested the live touched on sensitive topics related to future projects, enlistment timelines, or internal decisions not yet meant for public discussion. Others believed it was purely about emotional well-being, a reminder that even global superstars are still human, and that sometimes honesty needs to be protected from the weight of public scrutiny. Bang Si-hyuk's name remained at the center of the narrative, not as a villain but as a guardian. Over the years, he had repeatedly emphasized the importance of BTS's mental health and long-term sustainability. He had spoken openly about the dangers of burnout, about the responsibility of management to sometimes say stop even when artists want to continue. If he truly issued a warning that night, many fans began to see it not as censorship but as care. Yet the emotional impact on ARMY could not be ignored. For many, BTS lives are sacred spaces, moments of connection that feel unscripted and genuine. The abrupt ending felt like a door closing mid-conversation, leaving emotions unresolved. Fans expressed worry not only about what was almost said, but about how the members were feeling afterward. Was Jungkook okay? Did Jin and Taehyung feel frustrated, or did they agree that stopping was the right choice? In the days following the incident, subtle signs suggested that the bond between the members remained strong. Jin appeared cheerful in subsequent content, his humor intact. Taehyung shared artistic moments that felt reflective but peaceful. Jungkook, while quieter, eventually returned with messages of gratitude and reassurance, telling fans not to worry too much. None of them directly addressed the live, but their presence alone seemed to say that whatever happened, it had been handled within the circle of trust they shared. Perhaps the real reason behind the sudden ending was not a single sentence, not a single warning, but a complex intersection of emotion, responsibility, and timing. BTS exists in a space where authenticity and protection must constantly negotiate with each other. That night, protection may have won, not because honesty was wrong, but because the moment demanded care. As fans continue to revisit those final seconds, one truth becomes increasingly clear. The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with unspoken emotions, with decisions made in seconds, with people choosing caution over confession. Bang Si-hyuk's rumored warning, whether literal or symbolic, may have been less about control and more about love. Love for the artists he helped shape, and an understanding that some stories are best told when the time is truly right. Until that time comes, ARMY waits, watching, listening not only to words but to pauses, expressions, and quiet reassurances. Because with BTS, even an ended live can speak volumes. The unanswered questions lingered long after the trending topics changed, long after new headlines tried to pull attention elsewhere. For ARMY, the abrupt ending of that live was not just a momentary shock, but a fracture in a narrative that had been building quietly over weeks, perhaps even months. It felt like standing in front of a door that had briefly opened, allowing a glimpse of something deeply human, only for it to be shut again before anyone could step inside. As fans revisited past lives, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, patterns began to emerge that suddenly felt more significant than ever. Jungkook in particular had been speaking in a softer, more introspective tone recently. His laughter was still there, his warmth unchanged, but beneath it lay a seriousness that fans had learned to recognize. He talked about time moving too fast, about moments he wanted to hold on to, about gratitude that sometimes sounded almost like apology. These were not alarming statements on their own, but when viewed through the lens of that sudden cutoff, they felt like pieces of a larger emotional puzzle. Industry insiders quietly suggested that management had been on high alert when it came to live broadcasts, not because of distrust, but because of timing. BTS stood at a crossroads where every word carried amplified weight. Solo activities, future group plans, and the ever-present expectations of a global audience created an environment where spontaneous honesty could quickly be twisted into speculation, headlines, or pressure the members did not deserve. In that context, a single emotional confession could overshadow months of preparation, intention, and careful planning. Bang Si-hyuk's leadership style has often been described as paradoxical. He encourages artistic freedom yet believes deeply in structure. He trusts BTS yet understands the unpredictability of live moments. Those close to HYBE have long said that his greatest concern is not public opinion, but the long-term emotional health of the artists under his care. If he intervened that night, it was likely because he recognized a familiar danger, the point where sincerity begins to cost more than it gives. What made the situation even more emotionally charged was the presence of Jin and Taehyung alongside Jungkook. Jin, who had carried the burden of being the eldest with grace, often acted as a buffer between intense emotions and public exposure. Taehyung, deeply empathetic, had always been sensitive to shifts in energy, often sensing unspoken feelings before they were verbalized. The three of them together created an atmosphere of trust that may have lowered emotional defenses more than expected. Some fans theorized that Jungkook had been about to speak about fear, not fear of performing or of the stage, but fear of the future, fear of change, fear of becoming something the world expects rather than someone he chooses to be. These are universal fears, yet when voiced by someone like Jungkook, they become headlines, debates, and projections. Management, aware of this, may have acted to preserve a private moment that was never meant to become public property. The silence from HYBE continued, but subtle changes in scheduling hinted at internal reflection. Lives became shorter, more structured. Pre-recorded content appeared more frequently, offering warmth without unpredictability. To some fans, this felt like distance. To others, it felt like a necessary pause, a chance for the members to breathe without feeling watched in their most vulnerable moments. ARMY's response, however, was anything but distant. Messages of support flooded social media in multiple languages, not demanding explanations but offering reassurance. Fans wrote that it was okay to stop, okay to protect themselves, okay to speak later or not at all. In many ways, this reaction may have been exactly what Bang Si-hyuk and the management hoped for, a fandom mature enough to prioritize the artist's well-being over its own curiosity. Jin's later appearances carried a subtle but noticeable warmth, as if he were intentionally radiating stability. His jokes felt slightly more deliberate, his smiles lingering just a bit longer. Taehyung's artistic posts leaned into softness and introspection, filled with imagery that suggested rest rather than tension. Jungkook's eventual return, though quieter, was deeply emotional in its own way. His words were simple, but the gratitude behind them felt heavier than ever. Still, the question remained unanswered in an official sense. Was there truly a warning? Did Bang Si-hyuk personally step in, or was it a collective decision made in seconds by a team trained to anticipate risk? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Perhaps the warning was not a sharp command, but a gentle reminder transmitted through staff. A signal understood instantly by artists who have spent over a decade navigating the fine line between openness and protection. What is certain is that the incident revealed something powerful about BTS's current chapter. They are no longer chasing validation or fighting for space. They are navigating longevity, legacy, and humanity under a spotlight that never turns off. In that reality, stopping alive can be an act of courage, not fear. The ending of that broadcast may have felt abrupt, even painful, but it also served as a quiet statement. It said that boundaries matter, that emotions deserve care, that not every truth needs to be shared immediately to be real. Bang Si-hyuk's rumored warning, whether spoken aloud or understood silently, may have been less about silencing voices and more about preserving them. In time, the words that were almost spoken may find their way into music, lyrics, or moments where context and safety allow them to breathe freely. BTS has always transformed unspoken feelings into art, pain into connection, silence into sound. Until then, that sudden darkness at the end of the live remains not as a sign of something broken, but as evidence of something deeply protected. And so, ARMY continues to wait, not with impatience but with trust. Because if there is one lesson that night quietly taught the world, it is that sometimes the most meaningful acts happen off camera, in the seconds we are not allowed to see.